My name is Michelle Caldwell. I'm 26 years old, and the night my father threw me out of the house, he made one very expensive mistake. He forgot that almost every card in that family still worked because I allowed it to. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift reviewing fraud cases at a credit union. My eyes were tired, my back hurt, and all I wanted was to eat something warm and go to sleep. But the second I walked into my parents' dining room, I knew dinner wasn't dinner. There was a pile of overdue notices sitting next to my plate. Not hidden, not explained, displayed, like they had been waiting for me. My father was already angry before I sat down. He slapped the table hard enough to rattle the silverware and pointed at me like I was one of his employees. "You've become useless to this family," he said. My mother didn't defend me. She didn't even hesitate. She folded her arms and said, cold as glass, "Then leave." For a second the whole room went still. My younger brother Ryan stared at his phone and said nothing. My father shoved my coat across the table toward me and sneered. "Take your little office job, your attitude, and get out of my house." That's when my eyes landed on the business card sitting beside his coffee cup. His name was embossed on the front. But the account behind that card, my credit, my business credentials, my bookkeeping company, my signature on the guarantee forms they begged me to sign 2 years earlier when Caldwell Home Renewal was on the verge of collapsing. They needed my clean credit back then. They needed my knowledge. They needed my paperwork. Tonight apparently they didn't need me. So I took them at their word. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I picked up my coat, walked out the front door, got into my car, and sat there in the dark with my hand on the steering wheel. Then I opened the banking app. One by one, I froze every card connected to my personal guarantee. The business cards, the fuel cards, the emergency card my mother treated like an unlimited personal account. All of them. Then I sent exactly one text. Perfect. If you don't need me, you don't need my credit either. I've frozen the cards. Less than 20 minutes later, my phone exploded. Calls from my father. Calls from my mother. Calls from the business number. Unknown numbers I knew had to be vendors or subcontractors standing at counters with declined cards in their hands. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me this. What city are you watching from and what time is it there right now? I want to know how far this story is traveling tonight. I stayed parked across the street for another minute, watching the dining room window glow like everything inside that house was still normal. But it wasn't normal anymore. My father had spent his entire life ruling rooms with volume. My mother had her own method. Guilt, silence, emotional pressure. Between the two of them, they had trained everyone in that house to confuse fear with respect. And money. Money was always the tool they used and blamed at the same time. They burned through it. They hid it. They mismanaged it. Then they acted shocked when I asked questions. 2 years before that night, when their renovation business nearly lost supplier access, they came to me in panic. They said it was temporary. They said family had to help family. They said if I signed on as guarantor, they could stabilize the company and get back on track. I believed them. That was my mistake. Once my name was attached, the cards stopped being business tools and became lifestyle support. Paint, lumber, fuel, client lunches, my mother's salon visits, my father's expensive dinners, and one weekend casino charge he later tried to label as networking. Every month I cleaned the mess before it hit my credit report. Every month I fixed the books. Every month I told myself it was the last time. And then the night came when they looked me in the face, told me to leave, and said they didn't need me. So I made sure my finances left with me. My phone kept vibrating so hard in the cup holder it sounded like something trapped and angry. I ignored it until a voicemail preview from my father popped up. "If those cards aren't working again in 5 minutes, you're finished." I deleted it without listening to the rest. Then my mother texted, "Come back inside. Don't humiliate your father in front of his crew." That was the moment I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because even after everything, her biggest concern was still his image. Put the car in drive. For 1 weak second I almost turned around. I could already hear the version of myself that used to survive in that house. The one that apologized first, explained everything softly, and made other people's cruelty easier to live with. That version of me had spent years translating abuse into stress, control into concern, manipulation into family. Then a new message came in. From Ryan. Dad's losing it. He says this is all your fault. What did you do? I stared at the screen until it dimmed. I had walked out. But Ryan was still inside. That hit me harder than anything my father said. I drove to my Aunt Carol's townhouse on the west side of Cleveland. No dramatic country road. No cinematic sunset. Just wet pavement, red lights, traffic, and my own reflection in the windshield looking like someone I barely recognized. Every stoplight gave me the same question. Was I protecting myself? Or was I becoming someone who used money as a weapon? I didn't have a perfect answer. I only knew the accounts were attached to my name, and that name was the one thing I still had control over. Aunt Carol opened the door before I even knocked. She took one look at me and said, "Did your father finally go too far?" He nodded. She stepped aside. "Then come in before you talk yourself into going back." That was Carol. No dramatic embrace. No rushed comfort. She never covered pain before she understood it. She locked the door, turned on the kettle, and let me stand in her kitchen while my phone kept buzzing in my hand. "Put it down," she said. I looked at her. Not forever. Just for tonight. Let it ring without letting it control the room. So I set the phone on the table beside a bowl of oranges. It buzzed again and again, crawling across the wood with every call. Carol watched it like it was radioactive. "How many cards?" she asked. 6. "And do you have the legal right to freeze them?" "Yes. They're tied to my guarantee and my company profile. I didn't touch their personal bank accounts." She gave one short nod. "Good. Then tonight is not about feelings. Tonight is about records." Carol had worked as a paralegal for 3 decades. She knew exactly how families destroyed each other. Through signatures, debts, assumptions, and the kind of verbal promises people swear are harmless until lawyers get involved. So we built a file. Screenshots of the account freeze confirmations. Copies of the card agreements. Emails where my father referred to the accounts as Michelle's business line. Texts from my mother asking me to float balances. Just until next month. Statements showing personal charges buried among business expenses. Carol helped me forward everything to a new private email address. For the first time, I saw my life not as an emotional mess, but as evidence. And evidence is powerful because it doesn't forget. It doesn't soften. It doesn't get talked over. Around midnight, my mother left a voicemail. Carol asked if I wanted to hear it. Said yes. "Michelle, sweetheart, your father is under a lot of pressure," she said. "You've made your point. Now unlock the cards before somebody important finds out." Somebody important. Not before my credit got destroyed. Not before the lies spread further. Not before the damage got worse. Just before somebody important found out. Then came my father's voicemail. No performance. No sweetness. "You think you matter now. You are nothing without this family. Turn those cards back on, or I'll tell everyone you stole from us." Carol paused the message and looked at me over her glasses. "There," she said. "That's the threat. Save that one." I wanted to feel strong. Instead, I felt cold. When the phone rang again, my thumb hovered over the answer button. I wanted to say something cruel. Something sharp enough to make him feel an inch of what he'd spent years making me feel. Carol saw my face. "Michelle," she said quietly, "don't start speaking their language just because you finally have leverage." So I put the phone down. That was the real beginning. Not freezing the cards. Not walking out. The real beginning was choosing not to become my father just because I finally had the power to hit back. The next morning I woke up on Carol's couch with 58 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and one new text from Ryan. Dad took my car keys. Says if I talk to you I'm picking a side. I sat up so fast the blanket fell off me. Carol was already standing in the doorway with coffee. What now? She asked. I handed her my phone. Her jaw tightened. I had thought freezing the cards would force my parents to deal with their own financial mess. I didn't realize my father would immediately go after the one person still trapped in the house. Ryan was 21. He worked part-time for the family business while taking community college classes. He was technically old enough to leave, but still young enough that my parents controlled his world through practical things: tuition help, transportation, housing, approval. Everything was conditional. I texted him, "Are you safe?" No response for 11 minutes. He didn't hit me, but he says I'm off payroll until you unlock the cards. That was my father in one sentence. If he couldn't regain control of me, he would punish whoever was closest. Called Ryan. He answered in a whisper. I'm in the garage. Did he hurt you? No. He threw something at the wall. Not me. He tried to laugh, but it cracked in the middle. He says you sabotaged a cabinet order this morning. Supplier wouldn't release materials because the card declined. Closed my eyes. Course. That was how my parents always operated. Not by proving anything. By repeating a story with enough confidence that people got tired of questioning it. Meet me somewhere public, I said. The coffee shop near campus. 30 minutes. He took my keys. Then I'm coming. Carol insisted on driving. Not because I was fragile, but because she understood witnesses mattered. When we pulled up near the detached garage behind my parents' house, Ryan was standing under the edge of the roof with a backpack clutched to his chest. His hoodie was already damp from the rain. He looked ashamed. That was the part one hated most. Not just that he was being mistreated, but that he had already learned to feel embarrassed by it. Before he could reach the car, the side door slammed open. My father came out barefoot, face red, Ryan's keys in his hand. Get back inside, he shouted. My mother appeared behind him in a robe, arms crossed. Michelle, you've done enough. Carol lowered her window an inch. Richard, maybe stop yelling. Neighbors own cameras now. That changed him instantly. Not remorse, just caution. I stepped out into the rain. Give him the keys, I said. My father laughed. You don't give orders here. They belong to him, I said. The car loan is in Ryan's name. I checked. He hated facts. Facts took the drama out of his performance. My mother pointed at me. Do you see what she's doing? She's turning you against us. Ryan looked from them to me, like the old pattern was fighting inside him. Obey and stay safe. Or refuse and pay for it. I wanted to drag him into the car and end it. But leaving had to be his choice. Ryan, I said carefully. Come with us for tonight. That's all. One night. No pressure. No final decision. Just don't stand here while they punish you for something I did. My father threw the keys into the wet driveway. Go, he snapped. But don't come crawling back when she gets tired of saving people. Ryan bent down, picked up the keys and got into the back seat. That tiny movement broke something wide open. My mother started crying. Loud, visible, perfectly timed. I looked at her and asked the question I should have asked years earlier. Was it ever sacrifice with you? Or just control dressed up to look noble? She had nothing to say. We drove away in the rain. From the back seat, Ryan said quietly, I didn't bring much. I looked at him and said, you brought yourself. That's enough. Over the next few days, my parents launched a full campaign. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years started messaging me. Church friends. Old neighbors. People who had no idea what happened but suddenly had strong opinions. According to my father, I hacked business accounts. According to my mother, I abandoned the family in the middle of a crisis. According to both of them, Ryan had been manipulated. What they forgot was simple. I had documentation. On the fourth day, Carol dropped a manila folder on the kitchen table. You can stay silent, she said, Or you can answer lies with paper. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. I wanted a life where my father's moods no longer determined the emotional climate of every room I entered. But my silence was helping them. So I sent one message. I will meet one time at Caldwell Home Renewal at 5 p.m. We will discuss the accounts, the balances, and the false accusations. I will be recording the meeting for my protection. If you decline, all future communication will be in writing only. My father replied almost immediately. Come alone. Carol actually laughed. At least he's predictable. At 5 o'clock, Ryan and I walked into the office attached to the warehouse. Carol stayed outside in the car with copies of everything. My phone was recording in my pocket. The second recorder was in my bag. My father sat behind his desk like a man expecting surrender. My mother stood next to him with red eyes and flawless makeup. The first thing out of his mouth was, "Unlock the cards." Not hello. Not sit down. Not are you safe. Just a command. I placed the folder on his desk. No. His expression hardened. Excuse me. No, I said again. Those accounts are under my guarantee, tied to my business profile, and used beyond the terms we agreed to. You made personal charges. You carried balances. And now you're accusing me of theft because I stopped covering the damage. My mother gasped. How dare you talk to your father like that? I opened the folder. This is the signed agreement. Primary guarantor, Michelle Caldwell. Authorized users, Richard Caldwell, Denise Caldwell. This is the email where Dad asked me to sign because the bank rejected his application after a prior default. This is the casino hotel charge. This is the salon membership. This is the restaurant bill from the same week you told me payroll was short. My father swiped the papers off the desk. Ryan flinched. I didn't pick them up, I said. The room went dead quiet. My mother whispered, Michelle, don't do this. I looked at her. You already did this when you told people I stole from you. My father stood up so abruptly the chair rolled backward. You think paperwork makes you better than me? No, I said. But it does make lying harder. His face changed. For years I had seen anger on him. Contempt. Self-pity. Control. This was different. This was fear. He lowered his voice and tried another tactic. After everything I've done for you. There it was. The invoice. The lifetime debt he believed children owed simply for being raised. You gave me shelter, I said. Then used it as a leash. My mother started crying again, but this time there was panic underneath it. If those cards stay frozen, we could lose the Miller job, she said. We could lose the warehouse. Then maybe, I said. You should have thought about that before you used my credit to keep your lifestyle afloat and then threw me out of the house. My father pointed at the door. You are not my daughter anymore. Ryan inhaled sharply. My mother covered her mouth, but she didn't challenge him. And the strange thing was, it didn't break me. Years ago that sentence would have destroyed me. I would have apologized just to reverse it. But standing there, surrounded by proof, I finally understood something. He had always wanted the title of father without the accountability of being one. So I nodded. That may be the most honest thing you've ever said. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Continued. I am disputing every personal charge. I am removing both of you as authorized users. I am correcting the record with the bank. And if one more person contacts me claiming I stole from you, I will send them every document in this folder. That's when Ryan spoke. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. You don't want family, he said. You want control. All of us turned toward him. My father stared like he didn't recognize his own son. Watch your mouth. Ryan swallowed. I have my whole life. That was the moment I knew he was truly leaving. Not because I told him to. Because truth had finally become louder than fear. My father started threatening lawyers, police, public humiliation. Every weapon he thought still worked. I let him finish. Then I tapped my pocket. This meeting is being recorded. You were informed in writing. The room changed again. People who live by intimidation rarely know what to do when someone calmly starts keeping records. My mother sat down like her knees had suddenly stopped working. I gathered the papers, placed them back into the folder, and headed for the door. Behind me, my father said, quieter now, "You'll regret this." I didn't turn around. "No," I said. "I'll heal from it." That night should have been the end. It wasn't. 2:13 in the morning, Ryan called me from outside the house. He had gone back to get his laptop, school papers, and our grandfather's watch. Instead, my parents had changed the garage code and left his things on the porch in boxes. In the rain, we found him sitting on the curb under the porch light, soaked through, holding his backpack close while cardboard softened and split beside him. The house was dark except for one upstairs window. They were awake. They were watching. We loaded everything into the trunk. Then my mother stepped onto the porch. "Ryan," she called softly. "Come inside and we'll talk." But she stays out there. My father appeared behind her. "If you leave now, don't expect anything from us again." Carol stood beside me and said, "He has rights. Locking him out and dumping his property is not legal." My mother changed tactics immediately. "Sweetheart, your sister is angry. Don't ruin your life over her revenge." Ryan wiped rain from his face. "This isn't revenge," he said. "I'm leaving before I turn into both of you." My father took one step forward. Carol raised her phone and started recording in plain sight. "Go ahead," she said. "Say it again." He stopped. That was Ryan's moment. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a quiet refusal to be pulled back by guilt. The weeks after that weren't beautiful or easy. No montage. No instant recovery. Ryan slept badly. I jumped every time my phone buzzed. Carol's dining room turned into a command center of forms, disputes, password changes, school paperwork, and new bank accounts. I removed my parents from everything. Ryan opened accounts at a different bank. Carol helped us request legal copies of documents my mother refused to hand over. My father made one last move and told a major client I had sabotaged company systems. That client happened to be a retired accountant. He asked for proof. I sent mine first. 3 days later, the Miller contract was cancelled. Suppliers moved the company to cash-only terms. The business credit line was reviewed. The fuel cards remained frozen. The consequences didn't come all at once. They came like mail. One notice. One rejection. One cancelled order at a time. My mother called from an unfamiliar number once. I answered by accident. She sounded smaller than I had ever heard her. "Michelle, your father hasn't been sleeping." I waited. We might lose the warehouse. There was still a part of me that wanted to fix it. The trained part. The daughter who thought love meant absorbing damage. But I had a different voice now. "I'm sorry you're dealing with that," I said. "But I'm not financing it." She whispered, "So that's it." "No," I said. "That's the first boundary." That first month taught me something I wish I had learned years earlier. Freedom is not always dramatic. Sometimes freedom is changing your passwords. Sometimes it's a locked bedroom door. Sometimes it's eating dinner without measuring everyone's tone. Sometimes it's a spreadsheet where your name is finally protected. Ryan started sleeping better. He discovered he liked cooking when nobody mocked him for making a mess. I discovered I could sit in silence without bracing for impact. Some relatives apologized. Not many. Enough. One cousin wrote, "I didn't know the cards were under your name." I replied, "You didn't ask." That became one of the biggest lessons of my life. People are often quick to judge and slow to verify. My father never apologized. He sent one email written like a business memo offering to discuss mistakes on both sides. I ignored it. My mother mailed Ryan a birthday card with no return address. Inside she wrote, "We miss the old you." Ryan read it, set it down and said, "They don't miss me. They miss the scared version of me." And I knew then he was going to be okay. Not untouched. Not magically healed. But okay. As for the business, it survived, but smaller, weaker, and without the safety net they thought would always be there. The bank cut access. Employees left. My mother sold her car. My father started taking smaller cash jobs. For years he taught us that consequences were for children. Turns out adults get them too. And when I finally heard how badly everything had fallen apart, I expected to feel victorious. I didn't. Revenge sounds exciting when you're hurt. In reality, it felt more like looking over a burned field and being grateful the fire had finally stopped spreading. The biggest thing I learned was this. You do not owe loyalty to people who require your destruction in order to feel secure. Love should not need your credit score, your silence, your income, your fear, your future. Healthy family relationships survive boundaries. Unhealthy ones collapse the second access is denied. Maybe some people will hear this story and say I should have been gentler. Maybe. But in my life, gentle had become another word for permission. The night my father said, "We don't need you," he meant it as an insult. What he actually gave me was freedom. Because if they didn't need me, then they didn't need my credit. They didn't need my labor. They didn't need my silence. They didn't need my brother as collateral. And they definitely didn't need me pretending that control was the same thing as love. Today, Ryan is back in school full-time and working at a campus tech desk. I still work in fraud analysis, and I run my bookkeeping clients with contracts so strict Aunt Carol jokes I could audit the Pentagon. Maybe she's right. Keep everything now. Statements, emails, agreements, promises, and especially apologies. Because I've learned this. When people lose access, they suddenly become very good with words. Real change is rarer. Maybe my parents will change someday. If they do, I won't punish them for it. But I also won't reopen the door just because they knock. There is a difference between forgiveness and re-entry. A difference between compassion and surrender. A difference between being a good daughter and being used as an unpaid safety net by people who only valued you when you absorbed the fallout. So if you're listening to this and you've been called selfish simply because you finally said no, remember this. Boundaries don't destroy healthy families. They expose unhealthy ones. And if your peace costs someone their control over you, that does not mean your peace is wrong. It means their control was never love. My father threw me out and said they didn't need me. 20 minutes later, their cards stopped working. But the real shock wasn't the frozen accounts. The real shock was that for the first time in my life, I didn't go back.